We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Alma. I'm Esther Odanga from Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Earthquakes with magnitudes 5.7 and 5.2 jolted Davao Occidental early today, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology.
The Myanmar junta on Sunday rejected a regional special envoy's request to meet with a group of ousted lawmakers, which it had branded a terrorist group amid attempts to break a year-long political stalemate since the coup.
The Philippine government will not accept the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP ratification instrument of military junta-led Myanmar unless it stands in the way of a consensus in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN. First in our news, earthquakes with magnitudes 5.7 and 5.2 jolted Davao Occidental early today, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. Aftershocks are likely from the magnitude 5.7 quake that struck at 2:29 a.m., 109 kilometers southeast of the municipality of Jose Abad Santos. This tectonic quake was 120 kilometers deep. Intensity 3 was felt in Tupi, South Cotabato, while Intensity 2 in General Santos City and Davao City. PHIVOLCS recorded the following instrumental intensities: Intensity 3 at General Santos City, 1 at Davao City and Kidapawan City. Reported intensity is the traditional way of knowing the intensity based on reports by people who felt the earthquake, while instrumental intensity is measured using intensity meter that measures ground acceleration. Meanwhile, the magnitude 5.2 earthquake's epicenter was 115 kilometers southeast of Jose Abad Santos. It struck at 5:13 a.m. and had a depth of 69 kilometers. Instrumental intensity 2 was recorded in General Santos City. Aftershocks are unlikely. PHIVOLCS is not expecting damages from both earthquakes, as damage starts at intensity 6. Hong Kong's foreign domestic workers are being abandoned in the current coronavirus wave sweeping the city, with some forced to sleep rough or being denied treatment after testing positive, according to charities. The warning came as Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, told residents to encourage helpers to stay indoors and said police would step up social distancing fines. Plus, the city was also preparing to test the entire population for COVID as it struggles to tackle a wave of infections. Let's listen in.
One of the measures that we are planning very seriously, is a mandatory universal testing. So we will test everyone in Hong Kong. But mandatory testing and a complete city lockdown may not need to go hand in hand. It depends on the actual situation. In our case, having examined the unique situation in Hong Kong, we probably will just go for universal testing of everyone.
Activists said many Hong Kong employers were refusing to let their domestic workers leave, often cramped apartments even on their day off, while some had been fired for taking their rest day. For us, staying home means we have to work, according to Dolores Valladares Palaez from the Asian Migrants Coordinating Body, adding that workers needed compassion and help from both the government and wider society. The coalition said Hong Kong police had also ramped up social distancing fines each weekend for domestic workers, with penalties up to double their monthly wage. But City Leader Lam delivered an uncompromising message saying, if you employ a foreign domestic worker, please use your best efforts to urge them to stay home, she said. She also said police would strictly enforce a current ban on more than 2 people gathering in public and would fine migrant workers if they gathered in groups. I'll say now, she said, our law enforcement this Sunday will no longer be merciful, according to the Hong Kong leader. Like mainland China, Hong Kong has stuck to a rigid zero-COVID policy that largely kept the virus out, but left the international business hub cut off for the last 2 years.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, will provide cash aid worth $200 or around 10,000 pesos for each overseas Filipino worker or OFWs in Hong Kong who tested positive for COVID-19. This is according to Malacanang on Monday. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said acting presidential spokesperson made this announcement as he assured that the Philippine government, through the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, or POLO, is currently extending assistance to COVID-infected OFWs in Hong Kong. He said the POLO immediately provided OFWs there with food, hygiene kits, and power banks to allow them to communicate while waiting for calls from the Center for Health Protection and HK Labor Department. The POLO coordinated with a non-government organization to provide an isolation facility to accommodate several of our OFWs, he noted. He said the POLO also coordinated with the Hong Kong Labor Department, which set up an isolation facility for our kababayans pending admission to quarantine facility, apart from providing transportation arrangements. The POLO has also provided $200 for aftercare financial assistance to those who recovered from COVID-19. As of February 19, 5 out of 28 OFWs in Hong Kong who contracted COVID-19 have fully recovered. Out of 5, 3 have returned to their respective employers. Authorities have arrested a doctor in capital Manila, accusing her of being a leader of a Maoist rebel group that has waged a decades-long insurgency against the government. Maria Natividad Castro, 53, is being held without bail and will be tried on charges of kidnapping, for which a lower court had ordered her arrest in 2020, according to a police statement issued Friday night. Prosecutor Flosemer Cris Gonzalez, RTF 6-ELCAC spokesperson, said Dr. Maria Natividad Castro was nabbed in San Juan City on Friday morning on the basis of a legitimate and judicially issued court warrant. It makes no difference if she graduated top of her class from St. Scholastica's College or the UPPGH or University of the Philippines, Philippine General Hospital. Nor does it matter which awards she won. A medical license and an exemplary academic record do not grant anyone immunity from law, Gonzalez said in a statement. Undersecretary Lorraine Marie Badoy, National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict spokesperson for sectoral concerns, said Castro, alias Kayami or Kaami or Doc, is not a simple member of a terrorist organization. She is a Central Committee member of CPP, NPA, NDF, or New People's Army National Democratic Front. She is also Secretary General of a terrorist front, Karapatan Caraga, that lawyers for NPA or rebels, Badoy said in another statement. Badoy said Castro is in the inner sanctum of the terrorist organization and is one of the chief architects of some of the most atrocious crimes committed on the most helpless among us: human trafficking, recruitment, radicalization, homicide, terrorist financing, sexual abuse, child abuse, slavery, etc., she is among the most guilty. Gonzalez asked the Commission on Human Rights, or CHR, to be impartial and fair in their press releases, which claimed that Castro was red tagged. CHR also refrained from using the term Lumad to refer to Mindanao indigenous people, or IP tribes, where Castro allegedly served, according to RTF 6-ELCAC. In the absence of proof to substantiate their rants, Gonzalez said their statements are basically irresponsible. The Philippines has endorsed the official definition of anti-Semitism as prescribed by International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. at Teddy Boy Locks said Philippines stands with decent humanity in endorsing the definition of anti-Semitism. The HRA, or Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, defines anti-Semitism as a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews.
The Myanmar junta on Sunday rejected a regional special envoy's request to meet with a group of ousted lawmakers, which it had branded a terrorist group, amid attempts to break a year-long political stalemate since the coup. Cambodia Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn, the new ASEAN special envoy to Myanmar, told a meeting of the bloc's foreign ministers Thursday that he planned to visit in March and meet with top junta officials. With backing from Malaysia, he also has sought to meet with members of a national unity government dominated by lawmakers from Aung San Suu Kyi's ousted party that is working to overthrow the junta. Myanmar's foreign ministry issued a statement late on Sunday saying it would promote constructive cooperation with ASEAN, including the special envoy. However, it couldn't agree to the special envoy engaging with unlawful associations and terrorist groups because they were perpetrating violence and pursuing total destructive path. The ministry said the suggestion was contrary to the principles of the ASEAN Charter, but also undermines ASEAN's counter-terrorism efforts. In May last year, the junta declared the NUG terrorists and has jailed several high-ranking members of Suu Kyi's party. Myanmar's top diplomat was barred from Thursday's meeting in Phnom Penh over a lack of progress in diffusing violence, although Prak Sokhonn said junta representatives had been allowed to listen in on discussions. Meanwhile, Myanmar's junta is set to replace Aung San Suu Kyi at the UN's top court Monday as it seeks to dismiss a case over the alleged genocide of Rohingya Muslims. Suu Kyi personally presented Myanmar's arguments at the International Court of Justice when the case was first heard in 2019, but was ousted as civilian leader in a military coup last year. The Nobel Peace Laureate, who faced criticism from rights groups for her involvement in the case, is now under house arrest and trial by the same generals she defended in The Hague. In its preliminary objections on Monday, Myanmar will argue that the court has no jurisdiction over the case and must throw it out before it moves on to substantive hearings. Local Myanmar media said the junta has a new delegation led by Ko Lang, International Cooperation Minister, and Thida U, Attorney General, who will attend virtually. Both have been hit with U.S. sanctions over the coup. The case, brought by the mainly Muslim African nation of the Gambia, accuses predominantly Buddhist Myanmar of genocide against the Rohingya minority over a bloody 2017 military crackdown. The ICJ made a provisional order in January 2020 that Myanmar must take all measures to prevent the alleged genocide of the Rohingya while the years-long proceedings are underway. ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Please stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ang morning show na always nagbibigay ng ngiti at saya sa bawat kada all over the world. Tara na't ma-inspire at ma-amaze sa kwento ng mga bawat kada na nagwagi sa anumang hamon at pagsubok ng buhay. Itago na mga remote control at tumambay lang dito sa paborito niyong barkada sa umaga, ang Kada Umaga! Dahil kayo ang bida dito.
Abangan ang mga istorya ng pagbangon sa Season 2 ng Lingap Stories tuwing Linggo, alas 5 ng hapon sa Net 25.
Welcome back. The Philippine government will not accept the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP ratification instrument of military junta-led Myanmar unless it stands in the way of a consensus in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN. The 50-nation trade agreement was signed in November 2020 and entered into force on January 1 after the ratification of at least 6 ASEAN member states and 3 free trade agreement partners, including Australia, Brunei, Darussalam, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. delivered the country's position during the ASEAN Foreign Ministers Retreat in Cambodia on February 17. New Zealand previously declared it will not deal with Myanmar under the said accord amid the humanitarian crisis since the military seized power in February 2021. According to the accord's legal text, the RCEP agreement will enter into force for other signatory states 60 days after depositing their instrument of ratification, acceptance, or approval to the Secretary General of ASEAN as the depository. The Philippine Senate has yet to concur with the ratification of the agreement. And there were 47,200 COVID-19 cases over the last 24 hours, a new single record since the outbreak of the pandemic in Vietnam, that according to the Ministry of Health. These cases take the national patient tally to 2,787,493, of which 205 are Omicron cases. The same day, the ministry reported additional 13,414 recoveries, raising the total number of recovered cases to 2,281,434. The ministry also announced further 78 fatalities, bringing the nation's COVID death toll to 39,501, or 1.4% of the national caseload. In its latest guidelines, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism relaxed entry restrictions for before tourists applicable until March 14, before the country would fully reopen inbound and outbound tourism under new normal from March 15. And under the guidelines, after 3 days of joining a tour package that they have to register beforehand, if the tourist tests negative for COVID, they can visit other localities that are also allowed to welcome back foreign tourists. The mandatory insurance coverage amount for COVID-19 treatment shall be at least $20,000. Foreign tourists shall be required to be fully vaccinated or have recovered from COVID-19, as well as show a negative PCR test result done in 72 hours before departure.
The Philippines is accepting and recognizing COVID-19 vaccination certificates from 8 more nations. Malacanang announced on Monday. In a press statement, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, also acting presidential spokesperson, said the Interagency Task Force, or IATF, approved on Sunday the recognition of national COVID-19 vaccination certificates of Egypt, Maldives, Palau, Albania, Estonia, Greece, Malta, and Uruguay for purposes of arrival quarantine protocols as well as interzonal and intrazonal movement. He said the vaccination certificates will be an addition to other countries, territories, and jurisdictions whose proof of vaccination the IATF has already approved for recognition in the Philippines, and without prejudice to such other proofs of vaccination approved by the IATF for all inbound travelers. The Bureau of Quarantine, the Department of Transportation One-Stop Shop, and the Bureau of Immigration have been directed to recognize only the proofs of vaccination approved by the IATF, he added. Earlier, the IATF said the Philippines will recognize the vaccination certificates from Argentina, Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Chile, Denmark, Ecuador, Indonesia, Myanmar, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Portugal, and Spain. Vaccination certificates from Azerbaijan, Macau, SAR, Syria, Malaysia, Ireland, Brazil, Israel, South Korea, Timor-Leste, Slovenia, Bahrain, Qatar, Switzerland, and Hong Kong will also be honored. The Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA, in partnership with the city governments of Manila and Antipolo, will hold vaccination drives at selected stations of LRT2 starting Tuesday. Transportation Secretary Arto Gade announced earlier that railway stations will be used as vaccination sites. Commuters may avail of their first dose and booster shots at Recta Station every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, and at Antipolo Station every Wednesday and Friday from 8:30 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. Registration must be accomplished at https://manilacovid19vaccine.ph/home.php for Recto Station vaccination, and https://antipolo-bantaycovid.appcase.net for Antipolo. LRTA Administrator Jeremy Regino thanked Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and Antipolo Mayor Andrea Inares and their city health offices for their prompt and full support. Meanwhile, almost 3.5 million people were vaccinated during the third run of the Philippines National Vaccination Drive, Bayanihan Bakunahan, from February 10 to 18th, the Department of Health, or DOH, reported Saturday. While the figures fell short of DOH 5 million targeted vaccines, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said the drive's result is still an achievement in the efforts to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. Take a look.
So we were able to achieve about almost 3.5 million na nabakunahan natin during this Bayanihan Bakunahan 3. Bagamat hindi po natin na-achieve yung 5 million na ating target, atin pong kinagagalak pa rin na meron po tayong achievement na at least 3.5 million nakadagdag po sa pagtaas ng antas ng pagbabakuna sa ating bansa. Tutuloy-tuloy lang ho natin ang pag-ramp up ng vaccination so that we can be able to cover as much as of the population as possible.
The Philippines has already fully vaccinated 62.3 million since the inoculation program against COVID-19 started in March 2021. Some 9.6 million have received their booster shots, while more than 395,000 in the 5 to 11 age group have their first dose.
The National Capital Region is expected to be downgraded to Alert Level 1 by March 1. And with the easing of restrictions on all government offices, the Social Security system should now lift its restrictions on face-to-face annual confirmation of pensions, or ACOP. The SSS has asked the 3 million pensioners to comply with the ACOP until March 31. The monthly pensions of those who fail to comply will be stopped on the following month. Senior citizen and journalist Emmanuel Jeslani said that the other methods of the SSS for ACOP compliance is through mail, drop, courier, online, or through chats with the SSS staff by enrolling in the MY or the My SSS account. Jeslani is appealing to the SSS to allow pensioners to comply with ACOP by personal appearance, which was the regular means to assure the pensioners' continued monthly pensions. Many of the SSS pensioners are not computer literate, and a lot of them, especially in the provinces, don't have computers to use for online compliance. It's also a challenge to most of them to complete the ACOP form online, assuming they are able to get a computer for this purpose. SSS removed the face-to-face confirmation of its pensioners amid the pandemic and due to the rise in alert levels in the country. The agency suspended the ACOP for almost 2 years as a concession to the pensioners. However, from October 1 to March 31 this year, pensioners are now required to confirm their existence through the different methods like mail, Dropbox, or online. And we'll be taking a break. ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Bago pa man ang pandemya ng COVID-19, mataas na ang pagkilala ng mga Pilipinong consumer sa responsibilidad ng mga kumpanya na tumutulong sa lipunan. But during the pandemic, we've seen more and more companies committing to such corporate social responsibility activities. What has inspired this generosity, and how can businesses get involved in building their communities? We'll find this out from our guests from JCI Manila as they share how COVID-19 is encouraging corporate social responsibility.
I believe every small act, lahat ng kabataan, may kakayahan upang tumulong sa ating mga komunidad.
Pwede natin tignan yung pandemya na maganda rin para sa mga millennial. Kasi ngayon nabigyan na tayo ng pagsubok na yun. And susuko ba tayo? Nasa sa atin na yun. And of course, ang advice natin is, wag na wag sumuko.
All this in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back. Equities paired losses and oil prices sank Monday after Presidents Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin agreed in principle to hold a summit to try to find a way out of the Ukraine crisis. Warnings from U.S. officials that Russia could invade its neighbor imminently have sent markets spiraling in the past week and sent crude surging towards $100 a barrel as traders fret over already tight supplies. The crisis has compounded worries about inflation, which is sitting at a 40-year high and putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to hike interest rates, with investors speculating over how fast and hard it will move. Monday's session started on a negative note, with markets suffering hefty falls, but the losses were reduced after the U.S. and Russian leaders said they would hold talks on Ukraine as long as President Putin does not invade. The news raised hopes for a peaceful conclusion to the standoff, though traders remain on edge. Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Seoul, Singapore, Taipei, Manila, and Wellington were in the red, though Sydney and Jakarta edged up slightly. Gold, a safe haven asset in times of turmoil, slipped. Oil was also down on easing fears about the possibility of supplies being hit by any conflict in Eastern Europe, though surging demand as the global economy reopens continues to put upward pressure on the commodity.
Indonesia pushes forward the agenda to bolster global recovery post-pandemic as it hosts G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting in Jakarta. Take a look.
Emergence of the new variant Omicron has also contributed to heightened uncertainty in the global economy. And like previous variant of COVID-19 that is affecting countries at different times, the divergence of capacity to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, including the vaccine rollout across countries, are major factors that are leading to the uneven recovery. The pandemic also provides us with a harsh reminder of the vulnerability of our global economy of non-traditional shock. Climate change could pose even bigger threat than the pandemic. The G20 must play a role in combating climate change.
In this background, the agenda on exit strategy will discuss on how the G20 can safeguard global recovery momentum from the negative spillover stemming from a synchronized exit policy and different pace of policy normalization.
Disruption, as well as technologies that facilitate climate action. In 2022, as we are all witnessing, we are going to be able to create legacy and
to create herd immunity, resulting in an uneven.
Organisasi internasional, para hadirin dan undangan yang berbahagia.
Rocketing global inflation will also be in focus at the meeting as central banks begin tightening rates and withdrawing massive stimulus introduced during the pandemic. Other issues on the agenda at the talks which were originally due to take place in Bali but were moved due to the Omicron virus wave, include debt restructuring for poor countries and reform of global health systems. Meanwhile, Thailand's economy rebounded in the fourth quarter of last year on the back of rising exports and the easing of coronavirus restrictions that allowed tourists to return, senior officials said Monday. The 1.9% on-year expansion was more than double what was forecast and marked a strong bounce after a 0.2% contraction in the previous 3 months. For the whole year, the economy grew 1.6%, according to the National Economic and Social Development Council, and also beat expectations. Southeast Asia's second largest economy was hit with a 6.1% contraction in 2020, its worst economic performance since the 1997 Asian economic crisis. The NESDC said it saw growth of 3.5 to 4.5% this year as tourism picks up and government spending kicks in.
Meanwhile, the Philippine economy and jobs are the top 2 election issues among voters. That is according to the latest national survey of Publicus Asia Incorporated. The Pahayag National Election Tracker Survey, conducted between February 11 to the 16th, showed that 65% of the 1,500 registered Filipino voter respondents said that the Philippine economy was one of their top 3 issues of concern in the upcoming May 2022 elections. More than 1/3 of respondents, or 36%, identified the economy as their number 1 concern. Meanwhile, 56% of respondents identified jobs as one of their top 3 concerns, education 34%, poverty 24.4%, and corruption at 23.8% were the other top-of-mind issues among respondents. Aureli Sinsuat, Executive Director of Publicus Asia Incorporated, noted that the electorate's concerns about the economy and employment are likely a consequence of the economic slowdown experienced by the Philippines when COVID hit the archipelago in early 2020. And we have more news for you coming up. Esther and I will be back right after this break.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Nakikiusap po ako! Maawa ka po sa kanya! Hindi ako maawa! Bakit ba? Lahat na lang nasabihin namin ay kinokontra mo! Ako, si Contraman!
Mga kasama, ito ng mga dokumento. Kailangan nating lagdaan yan. Gamit ang ating mga dugo.
Kailangan mo talagang dugo? Dugo? Pwede atsuekin na lang.
Ang ating pong game ngayon ay pagalingan sa Tinikling!
Magandang simulan at tapusin ang araw na nakatawa.
Yan, galing ah.
Iwas pa sa init ng ulo.
Umalis ka nang walang paalam, tapos ngayon babalik ka?
Ako mong pinaglulok, baka
Nasaan ka ba para masundo kita?
Pwede pang tawanan ng galit eh.
Kamay ko kang tulog! Matulog na tayong lahat! Wala bumibili!
Ang bago nating laro ay tungkol sa mathematics. Makinig!
Bakit nga pala nagdilim ang paningin mo kay Mrs.? Sinakal ako ni Mrs.
Funniest Nakaball Videos!
Ito ang Net25 Primetime News. Matatag. Matapang. Matapat kasama sina Alex Santos, Emma Tiglao at Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Sa ating pong lipunan, hindi na mawawala ang mga samot-saring problema. Kaya tuloy lamang pong pag-aksyon, paghahanap ng solusyon. Lalo na ngayon, may maaasahan ka ng re-responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
Welcome back. Imagine walking into a theme park full of desserts. Esther Odanga will take us to the Great and Grand Sweet Station, a Candyland-themed dessert park in Pattaya. Take a look.
Hi everyone! Summer is approaching and today we are here at Pattaya Sweet and Grand Candyland. And since Thailand reopened already for the tourists and the Test and Go scheme already up to the tourists, we will travel here in Pattaya and show you the beauty of this place. Looking for a unique destination near the capital city, Bangkok? Well, for the theme park lovers, the Great and Grand Sweet Destination, also known as Candyland, is one to consider. It is located in Pattaya City, just an hour drive from Bangkok. The admission fee on this beautiful place during weekdays is only 99 baht and 120 baht on weekends and holidays for adults, while it is only 66 baht for kids. It is open daily at 9 in the morning till 7 in the evening. You can find a life-size dessert figures from sundaes to candy houses to donuts and many more. Well, summer is fast approaching and this colorful atmosphere is worth the visit. This is a perfect and sweet place to bond with your family and friends. It was indeed a very fun and exciting place, especially for the travelers who are candy lovers. From Pattaya, Thailand, this is Esther Danga and believe in interesting times. And finally, in our news, the Myanmar Diaries, a documentary made by a collective of anonymous directors from inside Myanmar that depicts the brutal crackdown by the government since the military coup in the country last year, has won the Amnesty International Film Award for Best Film at 72nd Berlinale Film Festival in Berlin on February 16. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Myanmar Diaries also won Berlin's Best Documentary Prize, which comes with 40,000 euros or $45,500 in prize money for the film's directors and producers. In its statement, the Amnesty jury called Myanmar Diaries an impressive investigative and deeply courageous film. All those involved in this film who courageously risked their lives to make it to courageously oppose the military regime in Myanmar. According to the report of The Hollywood Reporter, the anonymous directors who go by the name the Myanmar Collective put together Myanmar Diaries with a combination of converted shot documentary footage, much of it captured using cell phones, and stage scenes, both reenactments of real events and poetic images of protest and defiance.
Thank you, Esther, for keeping me company. I enjoyed your trip to your feature on the dessert theme.
Yes, that is
park
the Great
in
and Grand
Pattaya.
Candyland. Yes, here in
Yes.
Pattaya. Hope to go there again with you, Alma.
Oh, yes.
Waiting for you here
Do
in
they
Thailand.
sell desserts as well?
Yes, Alma, they actually have cafe and ice cream shop in that place. So after a long, tiring walk, you can have desserts as well.
Oh, that's nice. I love
Yeah.
ice cream. Coffee and ice
You
cream.
love sweets.
Thank you very much, Esther, for that feature. And thank you as well for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus. See you,
You know,
back
it's
later.
always it's always my pleasure, Alma. And that is the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Esther Odanga from Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. And stay in the news because we live in interesting times.